So, we're continuing again. So inside the Sefer. So we're reading it, we're learning it inside, giving share outside. So if you don't have one, that's fine. But definitely would be kedai just because to learn the Sefer just to have one. So the last thing we said is we're still talking about the Pirkei Psicha, about Tefillah. And the last thing we spoke about was this Inyan. It's brought down, and it's actually brought down by Rashi. And it's this beautiful idea, again, that it says in Parshas Bereishis that Kosh Baruch Hu created, right, in the words of the English exact translation, the herbage. What's the herbage? Like the plants and the grass and all that stuff. And created Yom Shlishi. But it says that the grass and stuff didn't sprout until Yom Shishi. So what's Pshat? Was it created in Yom Shlishi or Yom Shishi? And then we said what? Because of the fact that it said that until Friday, until Yom Shishi, there was no Adam in the world. Then it says Adam Ayin, and we can see the exact pasuk over here. But right over here it says, because what it says V'chol siach hasadeh terem yev aretz V'chol esav hasadeh terem yitzmach. Before the grass sprouted, ki lo yimtir. Why did the grass not sprout until Yom Shishi? Ki lo yimtir Hashem Elokim el aretz. Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't bring the rain to the land. Why? Ve'adam ayin la'avodas adama. Because man wasn't around to work it yet. So what did we explain? What did the Mefarshim explain? That it wasn't that there was no man wasn't there to work the field, so to speak. It was that because what was man's avoda that he wasn't in the world to do yet? It was for man's avoda to daven for the rain, in order for him to bring the rain to sprout the plants. So what do we learn from this? We learn from this Indian that nothing in this world, the way it's literally Hashem set it in stone as part of the rules of creation, the world of B'rias Olam, that there's no such thing as a bracha or a shefet that comes to this world that's not by way of tefillah. And it's a big misconception, a big mistake that we think. That, we think like a lot of times, again, we're based on the whole misconception we all have a tefillah. That davening is just like it's an ATM. When you need something, you talk to God, you move on. It's way more than that. Even just by the words themselves, just by the avodah, Hashem actually built into the DNA of this world that no bracha will come from Shemayim except through the Sha'arim Betfilah, which is, so to speak, that's the name of the Sefer, right? So picking up from there, right, from that Indian that we said last week. So v'chein ksiv, it's also written similarly. Eitzel Yitzchak, vayater lo Hashem. And it says, because what does it say about Yitzchak Avinu? Yitzchak Avinu, when he was asking for a child, it says, vayater lo Hashem. He beseeched Hashem. This is one of the times that shown us tefillah we've mentioned, and he's gonna discuss. But it just says, vayater lo Hashem. He begged Hashem. What? But te'af api shekvar huvtach la'Avram Avinu al hemshech hadoros. Right? But what was the point of Yitzchak begging Hashem? Didn't Hashem? We just saw this. Didn't we just see this in the parsha? That Hashem promised Avram, no, you're going to have 1 billion children. So what's the problem? You're good. So why is Yitzchak screaming and begging and crying to Hashem? Literally. Lo hayu boim la'olam below tefillah. V'rak ayadei tefilos asher Yitzchak ne'atar lo Hashem. Because what do we say based on the same inyan? That just because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised, he said that he decreed, there was a decree in Shemayim, that there was going to be, Avram was going to have millions of kids. And it's all going to come, and it's going to come from Yitzchak. But even still, that bracha didn't come to fruition. It wouldn't have come to fruition if Yitzchak didn't daven. So even though Hashem promised Yitzchak, didn't matter. That's why the pasuk says, "Vayater lo Yitzchak." Yitzchak cried and beseeched Hashem, because nothing comes to this world, not a single thing that comes to this world. You could have all the mitzvahs, you could literally be zocheh to everything in terms of your actions, but if you don't bring it down by davening through tefillah, then nothing's going to come. V'chein geulas Mitzrayim asher huvtachu aleh. Same thing. Kodesh Baruch Hu promised to Avraham Avinu, your children are going to go through a very dark time and suffering and slavery in Egypt. V'nishba Hashem akach lavos. Kodesh Baruch Hu promised him. V'afa pikin nemar v'yishma Elokim es nakasam. When was Klal Yisrael? When were we redeemed? When were we brought out of Egypt? When what? V'yishma Elokim es nakasam. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard our groaning. There's another term of tefillah. See, by the way, this is also kind of like a foreshadow. We just mentioned 3 different instances of the Torah where it's mentioned that someone davened and 3 different words. That's the whole base of the Sefer also, that every time the Torah mentions it, the Torah mentions 10 different words for tefillah, and they all teach us something else on how to daven. But we're going to see that. Uva lo tefillah, lo yunegalim. So the big highlight here is that without tefillah, lo hayunegalim. If Klal Yisrael didn't cry out to Hashem, it's implied in the Torah that we wouldn't have been redeemed. Even though Hashem promised Avram, even though Hashem promised Yitzchak, Hashem said we're going to be redeemed. If we didn't daven for it, if Hashem didn't hear our groans, if Hashem didn't hear our cries to Him, we would not have been redeemed. V'chein b'harbi mekomos b'Torah mevorah shekol ma shekibla avos echol adoros hayarak alidei tefillah. Same inyan. V'hine muva b'shem archo. This is unbelievable, and this is again part of the Pirkei Psicha. This is going to blow your mind. V'hine muva b'shem archo, which is Rav Chaim Vital, Marino Rav Chaim Vital. Rav Chaim Vital was the main Talmud Muvak, was the main student of the Arizal. right? So, and most of the Arizal's writings, the Arizal himself didn't write so many of his writings. Yeah, maybe a couple things here and there, but yeah, the Chaim Vital basically wrote all the Arizal's Kabbalah and Torah and everything. So everything we have based on nowadays is based on from Chaim Vital. So Chaim Vital brought down the name of Chaim Vital Zecher Tzaddik Bracha. Shebedoros Harishonim Chachmei Gemara Haisa Torasam Keva Uva Ikra Avodasam. That what at the because Rav Chaim Vital brings down that at the time of the Chachavim of the Gemara and all the way back in the Doros Rishonim in the early generations, their Ikr Avodas Hashem was what? Limud Torah. Why? Because they were keva with it. With them, there was no such thing as bittul Torah. There was no such thing as bittul Torah. There was no like top level yeshiva. There was no bittul Torah. That was their ikra avodas Hashem. Ikra avodas Hashem, and we also know that they were holding pretty well. The ikra avoda in the Ordoros Rishonim was limud Torah. The ata, but now, for us, times have changed. The ikvas of the Mashiach, in the times that were in the heels of Mashiach, these generations. Not every generation until this point has been called the heels of Mashiach. These generations that we're in are when the poskim and the Mekubalim and everybody starts saying that we're on the heels. We know we're only a couple hundred years away from what the Gemara also says is the end of the Tekufa. Like we're mamish towards the end right now. And this time period is called Ikvah Mashiach, that it's the time of the heels of Mashiach. And he says the avoda has changed. Ikr ha'avoda hi ha'tfila. The Ikr avoda, believe it or not. And he's going to explain right now. But believe it or not, you might have thought the Ikra Avoda is Limud Torah. It's not. The Ikra Avoda of the Doros Rishonim was Limud Torah. Our Ikra Avoda is Avoda Satfila. What does that mean? V'hinei Pashahu Te'ena Kavana Shenishtaneh Ha'ini Nishal Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Chas v'shalom. He says it's Pasha. It should be Pasha to you. To obvious that what I'm saying is that I'm not changing the meaning of something of Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Chas v'shalom. Right? Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. We know that Limud Torah is equivalent to every single mitzvah in the Torah combined. Right? Limud Torah, there's nothing compared to it. Devada gam achshav. Even today, davar echad min Torah shave yoser mikol mitzvahs kulam, and we call it tfilas kulam. We know that vada in today. We even today, one word of Torah, literally one dibur of Torah, is equal to all the mitzvahs combined and all of your tfilas combined. Right? Confusing, right? Okay, explain. Right? So the idea is that one word of Torah is equivalent to all of that combined. Okay, so that was great. Right, just like the Nefesh HaChaim brings down about the koach of one word of Torah. Ella biuram shel dvarim hu kedugmas Rosh Hashanah. Rather, the way I'm going to explain it is like this: through the ways of Rosh Hashanah. Again, in the words of Rav Pincus, in the ways of kedugmas, I'm going to use Rosh Hashanah as an example. She vadai dav gemara shalom debos yom chashuv hu yosem mitkiya shofar shalom sayom. Right, because this is bivadai, the daf of Gemara that you're going to learn. If you learn a daf of Gemara on a regular day, it's already Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Now, if you learn a daf of Gemara on Rosh Hashanah, poof, it says avadai. That's more chashuv than Tkiyah Shofar. Why? Okay, it's simple. There's none. The Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. That means literally Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. So if you stack up quote unquote on the equivalency of Tkiyah Shofar and Limud Torah wins because Limud Torah wins over everything. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Okay. Aval adayim be'emes ikur avodas hayom hitkiyas shofar davka. But the reality is though, the ikur avodas hayom for Rosh Hashanah is what? It's not a day of limud gemara. It's tkiyas shofar. That's literally yom trua. Umisha yizalzel b'kiyah mitzvaso v'yitpos rakis limud gemara. And one who decides that based on this he's going to be doresh, he's extra stark to do this. He's going to be like, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. I'm not going to go here to tkiyas shofar because I want to go do Gemara Seder. And he goes and learns Gemara instead. Gam Torah ein lo. Not only does he miss out on Tkiyah Shofar, but he also doesn't have Torah. Why? Shekein davka mitzvah shofar hi avoda miuchedes b'yom zeh. Because what's the ikra avoda of the day? The ikra avoda of the day, the special avoda of the day, the real main ikra of the day is what? Is Tkiyah Shofar. The ikr kviyas ha'adam tzricha shetei al zeh inyan. The ikr kviyas ha'adam needs to be on this inyan. The zeh hu ikarosh yom, because that's the ikra of the yom. Right? So he's not saying over here, he's not saying that, he's trying to be mefurish. The Indian, the idea is the example that he's giving right now, is that he's not trying to say that just because that tefillah, because we're saying that our avoda is tefillah. He's not saying that tefillah takes quote unquote precedence in terms of technical terms and technical words over Limud Torah. But the point is, we all know that there's something called an ikr and a tafel, right? In a way that it's possible that you have a main purpose in life but also being able to everything circle around. And let me give an example. Just I'm trying to think off the top of my head just an example. But like maybe for example, a way to relate to this, kiviyachol, is kind of like a family, right? So for example, let's say for me, right, Baruch Hashem, I work, I do this job, I do that job, I have a lot of things I'm doing, right? And ultimately, my main focus during the day, what am I thinking about? How am I going to get that deal? How are you going to do this? How am I going to balance this in my learning? All these things, which are centered around my ikar avoda, so to speak. But the point is, what's not consciously kind of on my mind, but what's the real purpose of everything I'm doing is for my family, right? When I'm working the whole day, I'm not like, my family's not in my mind, like constantly. And when you're trying to work, like it's not the main thing, but what is the main avoda? The main avoda is the ikar, right? The ikar is trying to support a family. You're trying to build a family. That's like the main ikar. So it's not, so to speak, that it's like one is docha the other. Rather, you need both of them. But you can't lose focus on the main ikar. And the main ikar of the avoda, because again, if I just decide, fine, let me just focus on my family and just spend all day with my kids. I love my kids to death. But if I just neglect my avoda of working, just focus on the ikar, so to speak, and the analogy is like Talmud Torah, then what? If I just neglect my job, we're not going to have any money. We're going to be on the streets. What am I going to do? Right? If I just put all my effort into the ikar, but I forget about my main avoda, you got to do the avoda. And so to speak, Kain hu b'dora shalanu b'nei tefillah. This is the Indian in our generation of how we relate to tefillah. Even though we need to make Torah keva, 100%. Avada, Torah needs to be keva. B'kvias, nothing lacking. Every moment we can. Every single other thing is secondary to Torah. Torah is number one, everything goes around Torah. Because the ikar of the spiritual growth and power and koach and elevation of a person comes out of Torah. Mikol makom, but nevertheless, chashivus miuchedes yesh la'avodas hatefillah b'dorasenu. There's a special chashiv, there's a special emphasis, there's a special what do you say? Kufa tefillah in our generation. V'lochin sarich li'ishtado bo v'lidov acharei. Therefore, what do we have to do in our generation? We have to chase it. And give it a special importance. And he's going to explain why right now. So why is it? So we just said all these things. Okay, fine. So avodas tefillah in our generation. So that's like our ikar avoda. But again, it still sounds like a little confusing, like stira. So what? I don't know. Where does Torah come into? What is it? What does this mean? Why did it change? What's going on? It says, let's understand, what is this connection? What is the special connection that our generation has to the avodah tefillah that the previous generations didn't have? Why is it us that we have a special avodah in our generation? And it needs to be viewed as important, if not even more, in a way, than limud Torah. While not sacrificing your learning at all. Obviously, chas shom, but the point is we're putting effort into tefillah. Yesh lebari menizkar. She'adoros ha'achronim yuchodim bazeh shehem ha'mavar ve'hashar ben olam hazeh l'mos Mashiach. Because our generations, these generations of Ikar Mashiach, are the what? Are the shar. We are the shar. We are the gate between. We are the gateway between the Doros and what? Olam hazeh and the times of Mashiach. Because we're the final generations before Mashiach comes. We're literally the gate. We're the shar. We're the gateway until Mashiach comes. The kasher yitztarfu kol limud Torah. And so therefore, if we take all of over the thousands of years to this point, of all the thousands of years of suffering, of Mesiras Nefesh, of Limud Torah, the amount of Holocaust, the amount of genocides, the amount of people literally dying al Shem Kiddush Hashem, and the amount of things that we've done, the amount of zechus over all the thousands of years, we take them and we do what? And we put them all together. Al Yidei Koach Kulam Tava Gula. In theory, all of that has enough power to bring the gula, right? I think the point is, we have enough. We should have enough. There's no reason we don't have enough. The amount of, still, we're the only religion still around from those times, and not just around we're around in full force. We've been beaten down more than any other religion, and we're still holding the same Torah, the same laws, the same everything. Somehow, but we're still here. That's enough. That's enough to bring the gula. This is in the gula. This is the ikar. This is everything ties in right now. What was the klal we said? The klal we've been saying and the klal we said here is that what's the rule? Nothing comes to this world without tefillah. Impossible. The way Hashem built the world is that even if a person is zocha, right, you could be zocha to a life of parnasa. You could have hit the point where you're literally your zechuyos are like millions of times more than your averos. But without tefillah, without the avodah tefillah, without davening, without actually davening and bringing down the hashpah, just like Adam, right, it's not going to come to this world. B'pa. So therefore, how is Mashiach going to come? He's going to come bebechi, with tears, with crying, with tefillah. V'darshu Chazal she'ein hagalios chozros ela al yedei tefillah. She'sof sof kol davar magia rak al yedei tefillah. Because what are we saying over here? That this Inyan, how come? What's the special shaychus of our generation, even more than the previous generations? Avada, we're not saying that our Torah is worth any less. Chas v'shalom. But we have an extra avodah. We have an extra shaychus and a connection that our generation, that we are not the generation that should be lacking in tefillah, which we are. That's the Yetzer Hara. That's why in our generation, I think the main struggle of our generation is probably tefillah, like one of the main in terms of avodas Hashem, in terms of the connection, with all the distractions and all the confusion we have nowadays. But he's saying that the idea is that our generation should not be the one. We should be the last one that's having that's falling into these depths and putting more emphasis on. Because the truth is, back in the day, when they put all the emphasis in Limud Torah, they actually learned all day, and they actually knew Torah. They actually learned Torah right. For us, we do our best, but let's be real, right? We're not at that level anymore. We could see there's a Yeridas Adoros. So what's our Ikar? Our Ikar Avoda is, like we said, we have to be the ones to actually make all the suffering worth it for all these thousands of years. Because nothing is going to come into this world except Ayat Tefillah. And we're the last generation. It's up to us to open the gate. And the only way to open the gate is through Tefillah. So all the suffering, all the death, all of the Torah, all the Maisim, the only way it's going to be brought down is by us opening the Sharim, the Tefillah. The gates of Tefillah, and Be'ez Hashem bringing Mashiach. So this is our Avodah. This is the importance of learning about Tefillah. This is the importance of the Avodah. And he says the Avodah of Tefillah, as we said. You don't just show up and daven and succeed. It doesn't work like that. You don't just show up and then you're just going to connect and move on. It doesn't work like that. It's not what Tefillah is. Tefillah is way deeper. We're talking about Tefillah is talking about bringing Mashiach and bringing things down from Shemayim and connecting to the upper world. I don't think you just walk in and just like show up one day and, people say it'll click for you. It's ridiculous. Okay, it'll click. Like you're following halacha and you want to be following halacha. That's great. But like, if you really want to actually do something with Tefillah, connect with Tefillah, right? That's the avodah of the Tefillah. So this is the ikr. This is what we have to focus on, Be'ez Hashem. Again, continuing through, and we'll continue as we see how we're actually going to do that. But Shpi Zocher, Be'ez Hashem, to bring the Gula.